Hello, friend. Welcome back to the Identity Glow Up podcast. It is me, your host, Paige Harper, and I am joined today by a very special guest, Mikayla. And I'm so excited about this conversation. We actually were having a little bit of recording struggles, so I think that we are good to go now. But we are diving so much into identity, which y'all know is my favorite topic to talk about. And I have learned through my conversations on Instagram with Mikayla that we are very similar about things, but in a little bit of different ways, but especially the things that we talk about. We do talk a lot about identity, both of us do, but just in different parts of the identity upgrade process. So this is going to be so good. We have some very similar high energy personalities. So I have a feeling this conversation is going to be juicy. So get ready. This is going to be epic. Just a little bit about Mikayla before we get started. Mikayla is a coach that helps women collapse identity ceilings and activate irreversible expansion, which I'm so excited to get into. She is a podcast host of the Sovereign Remembrance, and she is a threshold, momentum, and confidence guide, storyteller, intuitive teacher, and alchemist. She serves the women who crave depth, resonance, and to like manifest big in this lifetime and dive into convos that go far beyond this surface level self-help that we see all over social media. So I am so excited to talk to you today. Welcome to the podcast, Mikayla.
Oh, thank you so much.
You're
I'm
so
so excited. So
welcome. Yes,
excited.
this is going to be so good. So I would love to start where like all of this really began, like looking back over your life. What was the thread or pattern that you kept seeing that eventually became like the work that you do today? Like what was that beginning thing for you?
Okay. So, the main thread that I started noticing in my life was that I would be freaking amazing at starting. Like, I would be the queen of starting a new project, moving in a new city, joining a new friend group. Like, I would constantly be bouncing around into new experiences because at the time I believed that that was like how you build confidence, right? Do new things. And so I would be catching myself in this thread of I would reach the top of the ladder in my job and then I'd get bored and then I'd pivot. I'd start a new job, that would promise more, that seemed like more exciting. I would move into a different province, like across the country and so on. And at first it was always so freaking excited because you have completely new energy everywhere. You're starting something new environment, new people. But what I noticed is that I'd always end up experiencing the same shit over time. Like, as much as it was so exciting at first, I would get myself right back into square one where it's like, oh, plateau, we're hitting the same income ceiling, even though we are making more money. Or, oh, you're joining a new friend group that you're feeling so excited about, but then eventually it starts feeling like almost like this half in, half out energy. You're like, I feel like there's something more. And so that was a pattern that I noticed that was happening in my life was I was constantly starting new things with good intentions. I just always wanted to feel more, essentially like tap into my potential. But I would always come back to that same thread of feeling again like, what the heck is happening? Like, this feels very familiar. And as if I've hit like a ceiling again, right back in square one. And I would repeat this pattern over and over and over again. And that's when I started noticing this thread where I was constantly chasing like this energy of more, but it was never getting reflected in my reality. It was like this feeling of, I know I have so much potential within myself. Like, I can do so much bigger and better things than what I'm currently experiencing. But it wasn't necessarily being reflected in my reality. And if it did, if I would hit new milestones and so on, it wouldn't last. Like, it'd be for a hot second. And then I would experience a breakthrough. And then I would slowly crumble back down into where I've already been. So that was the thread that I've noticed big time.
Yeah, and I think that that's something that I talk about too in my work, and I got it from Ed Milet, where it's like that ceiling, right? It's like the
Yeah.
thermostat, where I I have you have this certain identity that you are right now, And then that's what your thermostat is. So once you get past that point, once it gets a little too hot, the air conditioner turns on and it cools it back down. And it's like, how am I experiencing the same thing? Because I've been like, I completely understand where you're coming from, where it's like, oh my gosh, like I want this so bad. I want this so bad.
Yeah.
I have all of these dreams. I have all of these goals. I know I have this potential. Why the hell isn't it working for me? Like, what am I like? I am putting myself out there. I'm doing the things. So why isn't it shifting? And it is because of that identity ceiling that we have for ourselves, where it's like we can't break through it, or a lot of we can, but a lot of us don't know how to break through that identity ceiling, which keeps us stuck in what I call our old identity over and over and over again, and makes
Yeah.
us almost like have this deja vu of living the same day over and over and over again, even though we are actively trying to change our lives, right? Like I think that's
100%.
that's so powerful. So, what was the moment that like cracked everything open? Or is there like a series of moments where you're like, okay, I need to not only work on this identity ceiling for me, but also I need to help other people do this too? Like, what was that moment or moments that kind of broke everything open for you? It's like the aha thing.
There's so many different ones, but I feel like the first one that really started everything off for me was at the time I was working in mental health. So I was working with people who were under our care because they had different criminal records, they had different charges and so on. And so at the time I would be running these different programs as well, which came down to anger management or like theft prevention, community-based programs that were linked to behavior. And so I already knew at that time that that was not necessarily the space that I wanted to be in, but I knew I wanted to help people. So to me, I was like, this is an amazing job. You are helping people. You are doing all of the right things on paper. And it matched my background from my studies in criminology. And so I kept going in that environment over and over and over again. But my body, on the other hand, was like, girl, this is not the space. Because a lot of the people that I was working with, they weren't ready for the help. They were just doing the programs. They were in our care because they had to. They had criminal charges. So it was kind of, again, I would be doing these programs and people would either show up high or, again, they just would show up to get through the program, but they weren't ready for the change.
Yeah.
So over and over again, like my reality kept showing me like, this is not the space that you want to be in. And I had to put up like this energy as well that kind of bypassed some of my bubbly personality. I was working with people who have criminal charges. So you have to also have like this more firm identity.
Right.
And so as I was going through this space, like a series of different things were happening where I knew I wasn't meant to be in that space. I wanted to do more. I wanted to help serve people in a different way, but I didn't know how yet. And the universe just kept throwing so many curveballs my way. And I hit a breaking point where I got attacked one night by one of the residents. Yeah, so one of the residents was attempting to sexually assault me and I had to fight my way out of it.
Oh.
And I did. But what ended up happening right after is like I just went right back into like this good girl energy of like, I'm good, like don't worry about me, I'm independent. And so I ended up going right back in the space. Like I didn't take any time off. Like this was a traumatic experience, but I was just kind of, I didn't want to be seen in the victim lens. That was my main thing. I had these big fears of like, I don't want people to think I can't do the job or that like I'm not cut out for this, I'm not strong enough. So I kept going back in that workspace from like this, almost this ego energy of like proving energy that like I can hold this, I can do this. And then I hit another breaking point because I had this experience that was showing me again how misaligned I was and how this was not the space. But your girl ended up staying there. I stayed there. I did not get the frick out and entertain other things. And so I hit a second breaking point where my fears ended up manifesting. I was putting up this persona of being like the strong one. But underneath the surface, I was not feeling confident. I was actually like terrified going in the workplace and looking over my shoulder. Am I going to get attacked again? And so on. And I ended up having, there was a male coworker that was having a shitty day, and I was on the end of that shitty stick. And he ended up looking at me and saying the exact stuff that I was avoiding, which he said, ever since the attack happened, you've been useless and powerless. And I didn't even say anything. I took it. I went in the bathroom. I looked at myself in the mirror. I started bawling my eyes out. And then I went right out acting like everything was cool. Nothing ever happened. So my avoidance tendency was coming up. And that night is what activated my breaking point, where I looked at myself in the mirror. And again, I started looking at myself. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing, girl? Yeah. You didn't even have your back. Like, you were a bad bitch. Like, you were so much more than what you're experiencing. And you let someone talk to you like that. And you've also let your worst fears manifest. And so that was the night that activated my desire of wanting more, but needing to become someone different. I knew that I had to start becoming someone entirely different, and if I wanted to manifest a complete different reality. So that's the time, the pivotal moment where I started deep diving into identity work, manifestation, the coaching world, and I activated my desire of wanting to be a coach and actually help people never feel the way I did in that moment, weak and powerless, and actually expand into your bad bitch energy, your confidence, but not performing it, actually being that. So that was the pivotal point that really activated everything. And from there, I ended up bridging out into my coaching business. I went all in with, starting my business full time afterwards, coaching women into their badass energy.
Yeah, I love it. And I love the the podcast listeners will know, I love the bad bitch energy. I love the boss bitch energy. Like, that is my vibe. So I love that. I'm sorry you had to go through all of that, but I think it's funny that the universe, God, higher power, whatever you believe in, like, they will keep showing you over and over and over again, like, hey, now's the time. Hey, this is the thing. Hey, it's time. Maybe you didn't use the word identity ceilings at that time, but hey, this is like not who you're meant to be at a soul's level. Like, I don't know what you believe in necessarily about like the soul's level, but for me, it's like, at my soul's level, like, I know I'm meant for more. I'm still at my pharmacist job at the moment, but like, I've had so many of those moments where I'm like, I'm getting the signs where it's like, bitch, you gotta leave. It's time to go.
100%.
It's time for you to head out, right? There's a little bit of different like making things a little bit harder, which is probably an excuse on my end with kids and everything like that. But like, I've had those moments too, where it's like my identity ceiling is, I'm like pushing up against it, and my higher power is like, girl, it's time. It's time. And I almost feel like that's what's happening there. It was like all of these things over and over again. And it almost gets like worse and worse as it goes. And obviously the first incident was like tragic. But then after that, it was like a hit to your ego, right? The first one was like this physical thing where it's like, holy shit, I can't believe that happened to me. But then the second one was almost like a mirror to yourself, where it's like, okay, this is what I was kind of thinking anyway. Like, this is not who I really am. And you almost had this outside source tell you that, and like force a mirror in front of your face. Right. Which is, yeah. So where did the identity ceilings come from? Because I love that phrase. I've never really thought of it like in that way. So from those experiences, going full time in your business and all of that, where did the identity ceilings come from? Like, what exactly does that mean to you?
Okay. So first of all, in the story that I just shared, that was a clear identity ceiling. It was like, okay, you cannot keep going the same way, because even though that moment was a breaking point where I knew I wanted to shift, I needed to change, it was familiar. Like, it wasn't the first time. Like, I had already been here before, but it looked a little bit different. And so when that experience ended up happening, I felt my dad's reflection in the mirror as well. And I'm going to say a little trigger warning here, but like, my dad ended up experiencing an identity ceiling where he wanted more, he wanted to feel better, he wanted to become his best self for years, but he got tapped at his identity ceiling, where no matter how much he wanted to create change in his life, he always would end up in the same kind of feelings and same situations. And he ended up committing suicide when I was young. And so that's what activated a lot of like the importance here, was because I was like, why the fuck do people get capped at specific results in their life even if they have a desire for more, like they genuinely deeply want to change, they want more money, they want more impact, they want to feel happier, they want more freedom. But why is it that some people get capped? And it doesn't matter how many new actions they do, how many more times they change, your career, your environment, your friend groups. Why is it that people get right back to square one? And that's where a lot of the soul lessons came in for me. Was I was noticing I was experiencing the same shit as my dad was doing, but my ceiling looked a little bit different. Mm-hmm. Mine had to do with success. It also had to do with performing desires instead of actually feeling embodied in the desire. And so the identity ceiling ended up coming through because I started saying it doesn't matter when people are starting new things, they're doing more actions, they have a higher desire. What ends up changing everything is the identity of who you are being on the other side of those actions. So that's what ended up being reflected in my life. Was I was basically seeing myself being a character, like a movie character who was just constantly going through different plot twists, different scenarios, different scenes, different sub-characters were coming in, different cities, but my character, my identity was still experiencing the same shit, but with quote-unquote new experiences. Mm-hmm. And so I got really curious about that, because if you think about it, like, have you ever watched Sons of Anarchy?
I haven't. No, I've never seen
Or
it.
like, let's say James Bond movies.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so if you think of like a movie series mm-hmm. that you've watched in the past, or just a TV series, the series, it doesn't matter what happens, it's always capped at the identity of the main character. So for example, James Bond, every new series, every new sequel, there's always new villains, there's new romance, there's new action scenes, but it's always a fucking James Bond movie. Like, you always know what to expect. The results that James Bond creates is always capped to the character, the identity of James Bond. So, for example, James Bond cannot create a life of freedom and ease and just like, again, leaning back. Like, his character is calibrated to action, survival, like fast-paced movement. And so that's what ended up really bringing this up for me. It was like, holy shit, like, I am being a movie character who's just stuck in the same movie series. That it's like, of course there's new chapters, of course there's new movies coming out that feel like a fresh start, but it's always capped at the results of the character I was playing. So, for example, James Bond cannot create Kim Kardashian results. He cannot create Blair Waldorf results. Like, those are all very different identities who create very different realities. And so it's the same thing as if, like, James Bond tries to do things that Blair Waldorf does, or Kim Kardashian, or Ed Milet. Like, it doesn't matter if he tries to do new things, if he's still identifying as the energetics of James Bond, with the values of James Bond, the mentality, the behavior, the stories, he's always going to create the same results that James Bond creates. Mm-hmm. So same with the movies, you can have so many different plot twists, but the ending of that movie is always a reflection of the identity of the main character. So that's what ended up really bringing online, like, that metaphor brought online the energetics of identity ceiling. Is like, if you want to create an entirely different storyline with different results, whether it be more freedom, more money, you have better fitness, that you were locked the frick into your business or whatever that is, like, you can't want the desire more and do different things but still move like James Bond. You have to become an entirely different character, an entirely different identity who is unconditionally locked into the results that a new character creates, not bouncing in and out of 2 to 3 different characters, but really allowing yourself to bring a new main character energy online and become someone entirely different if you want an entirely different reality. So that's what ended up birthing a lot of my mission that is linked to identity ceilings, that if you catch yourself creating the same results, but you're like, man, like I've changed my habits. Like, man, I've changed my morning practice. Man, I'm looking at my business differently. I've hired different mentors. I have different strategies, but you're still creating the same shit. It all comes down to, my babe, you have hit an identity ceiling, and who you've been is the result of the current reality you're calibrated to. And so you can want it more, do things with more effort, more energy, more mindset. But at the end of the day, if you do not change the formula, the equation to which you've been showing up, and the identity, the container itself that creates the results, it doesn't matter how much you want it and how many new things you start, you'll always bounce right back to creating the results that your identity creates.
Damn.
I just went off.
Wow. Wow. I love that. First of all, we are so aligned right now. Like we're on the same frequency. Cause I was thinking when you were like talking about James Bond, like I've seen the movies, I haven't seen all of them, but like, I'm like, I've seen a series like thinking of like, if you would have asked me what series I've seen, I would like, well, Gossip Girl. And then you said Blair Waldorf and I was like,
Yes.
this is like perfectly aligned. Yeah, I love that because I do talk in my business too about, being the main character, like that main character bitch. And like you get to write your own story and stop being the side character in your own story. Like you're in a movie, like this is you, this is your life. But it's so true that like sometimes we get stuck in the same movie over and over and over again. It's just a sequel. Like we're in a new
Yeah.
place. Like even thinking like Legally Blonde, like you're in a new place, but the
Yep.
same thing's going to happen over and over and over again. It's the same plot line. Like if you want to upgrade your life, if you truly want to have this like different life and really shift into a whole new identity, sometimes you got to shift the movie. Sometimes you got to not just shift the scene, but also shift like your true identity within that scene, like who you truly are within the movie altogether. Like changing James Bond, like if James Bond wants to become Chuck Bass, then I guess he needs to go into like the Gossip Girl, not just like environment, but like in the energy and having a new thought process and taking new actions and doing these things, but like actually going into a whole new identity and not just like being James Bond inside New York, like in Gossip Girl scene.
Yes.
It's like actually becoming that person. Damn.
Yes.
That's so
You
good,
get
Mikayla.
it, babe. You get it.
That's so
100%.
good. That's amazing. So, what are the most common identity ceilings that you see women living under? Like, I know there's probably a success ceiling, maybe a visibility ceiling, money ceiling, confidence ceiling, things like that. Like, what do you feel like are the biggest like identity ceilings that women live under?
Okay, so one core one that's very like that I see all the time is especially with women who carry a lot of medicine. They're like, I got a mission in this lifetime. Like I got so much life experience. I know that I can help create a juicy impact in the world, but it kind of stays where like in the potential realm. So they have all of the different notebooks. They have so many different ideas, golden nuggets, like the desires there. They know they can create it. They see so many other people who are also reflecting what it is they want to do, serve. But at the end of the day, they end up asking themselves like, they're not actually that different than me. Like I can 100% create that too. Like if not even better, like my potential's there. But the ceiling when it comes to business and passionate ideas is either one, people go all in, you go all in, you finally decide to launch the thing, to launch the offer, but then it either pops off or it doesn't. And so I've had a lot of clients who have ended up having an amazing launch, but then their second launch is a flop. Or they are right about to launch something and they're in the momentum, they're in the fire, they're doing all of the actions, they're finally letting themselves be seen and share their messaging. But then it's a little bit of crickets and then their energy, their momentum drops and then they shy away, they pull back, they go back to old ways of hiding, old ways of, oh, well, maybe it's just not the time. So ceiling here is you're on fire. You got the ideas, you got the momentum. You're also receiving all the signs from the universe that this is what you're meant to be doing and things are going well. But then after, the momentum slowly starts to dip in the way they are showing up. So micro standards start to drop. And then they end up finding themselves looking at something that they started again, but they didn't follow through on, or something that they started, but it's not reflecting the potential that they know they can create with it. So that's what I've seen often with ideas, is it gets stuck in the potential realm where they're still moving with the actionables to put it out there, but reality is not reflecting their potential as to which is their desire gets to be, what's the word I'm looking for? Like solidified. So that's what I see a lot, is fiery momentum and then slowly collapse back to old ways, having a hard time to hold that new frequency, that new identity who's serving on a larger scale. The other one I see often is fitness based. Like you're starting a new workout or a new plan and you feel on fire, like motivation's there, you're kicking ass, your confidence is raising, you're looking at yourself in the mirror and you're like, dang, I'm looking good, like I feel strong, even just in the way you're walking, like you can feel the difference in your body, the confidence is there. But then micro identity leaks start coming in where it's either like, oh, I'm gonna skip this workout or I'm gonna wait till Monday. It's like, what I like to say, it's these sneaky little leaks that look innocent and they don't look like a big deal, but it's the beginning of the end. Like it's the beginning of like you're hitting that ceiling and now we're starting the micro downfall back to the baseline. And then next thing you know, you're looking at your workout clothes, you're looking at yourself in the mirror and you're like, man, I just like, what happened? Like you've put the weight back on, you feel guilty, and it's just again something that you dropped the ball on. So that's a ceiling I've seen fitness wise. Relationships too is a big one where you're either attracting a new partner or new friendships. And it's feeling exciting, it's feeling hot, it's like, oh my gosh, this person, like we're vibing, we have so much in common. And then all of a sudden, a couple different red flags start showing up. And then you start rationalizing as to, why it's not a big deal. And you're activating the potential. There's so much potential here. Like, it's not a big deal. Things could be worse. Like, this is good enough for now. And then you end up right back in square one asking yourself, how the fuck did I get here again? And it's a reflection of your ex-boyfriend or a reflection of old friendships, or you're just ghosting. You're ghosting the connection. So there's so many different, like I could go off like all day about all the different ceilings, but these are the big ones, especially relationship, fitness wise, business idea. But the same thing can happen financially, where you manifest a bigger month in business, you get new clients, or you even manifest like a refund check, bigger money. And you're like, dang, like I have just entered a next level reality. Like I feel so different. Like I feel so magnetic. Like the money's good. Your bank account reflects more of your potential. But then all of a sudden, sneaky things start happening. The car breaks down, unexpected bill with the furnace. You end up spending lots of money because you're feeling so activated by the abundance, and you're allowing yourself to finally buy things that you haven't let yourself buy before, whether it's splurging on courses or just like anything that you desire. Then you look right back at your bank account, you're right back to having the same conversations you were having 2 years ago or a year ago about money, and we're right back in scarcity. So a lot of the people that I work with, ceilings wise, is like they don't have a problem with breaking through. Like you can break through. You've tasted the breakthroughs before. You've hit the milestones. But it's the struggle comes in with holding it, staying in that baseline, staying in that next level and normalizing it. So that is what I see most often when it comes to ceilings. We're breaking through, but we ain't staying there. We're slowly trickling back.
Yeah, and that's something like that we have to. If we have to stay there. And I think for me, when you were talking about this, I was like, okay, so especially with like the business side, because that's more of the side that I am on. So that's the side that I relate to the most. Although the relationship thing, I wish I had you when I was in college, but it's fine. I have a very healthy, amazing relationship with my husband. We've been married 9 years, so it's fine. But
Beautiful.
but the like the business side of things, it's almost like you start giving yourself, I talk about excuses a lot, like you start giving yourself excuses and or
Yeah.
you're basically saying like the results that you're getting are defining who you are as your identity and not realizing that just because you get a shitty result does not mean that your identity has to like lower itself either. Like you can still be in this high identity and be like, or this next level identity and be like, okay, that didn't work. Let's move on to the next thing. What do I need to shift instead of making excuses and being like, well, I guess I'm just not meant to do this then. I guess I'm just not that person then. And I think when we start to give ourselves those excuses, or like you were saying, like those little tiny, like, I forget what you called them, where you have these little moments where like the old identity kind of like creeps in, right? It's almost like
Micro standard leaks.
there you go. Micro
Right.
standard leaks. I see it, and I've said it before where I've said it in two different ways. One where it's like, it's almost like just getting a little tiny needle and just kind of poking a balloon and just like it's barely deflating. Or the same thing with like a tire, when you run over a nail
Yeah.
and it's just like very slowly, like you don't even know it's there. You don't even know it's happening. You just ran over it, it's fine. But then all of a sudden, days later, depending on how often you drive, your tire's flat. It's like, what happened? That's what's happening to your
Yeah.
identity too, and you're allowing these micro things to like come in and just like take a shit on the progress you've made because your identity ceiling is starting to essentially drop back to who you've always been. And so I see it kind of like visually as that, where it's like just you're slowly deflating it instead of just continuing to stay in this new identity, stay in this next level identity. Am I kind of saying it
Well
correctly? Does
said.
that okay? Just want to make
Well
sure.
said. I'm loving your tire metaphor because
The
it's
analogies.
I love it because that's the thing. It's always the micro things that feel innocent. It's like it doesn't happen like overnight. It's just like the standard starts to deflate slowly and slowly, and then we're right back in square one. And something I teach inside the irreversible identity method is like this is the part when you see the characters in the movie that they're doing amazing. Like they're literally right on almost on the other side to their new life, to their desire, but then they go back to slightly old ways of entertaining something, and this is the time where you're yelling at the screen. The viewer's like, "Don't do it! No, 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 no!
Old
You know,
relationships
yeah,
or old
yeah, don't
patterns,
do it."
maybe an old habit. Yep.
Exactly. So that's when the identity gets capped. It's it's again, it's like they have good intentions. You think you've quote unquote made it, that you know better now, but then it's the identity is still not fully solidified. You're still playing in both realms, and then that's why you end up pulling back like almost like an elastic band. You're stretching, 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 expanding, but then depending on the elastic and its capacity, it'll snap back. So you have to change the elastic band. Otherwise, you're going to keep getting capped at the same expansion level.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's
Oh my
wild.
gosh. So, okay. So, a lot of people, especially like in the business side of things, they feel like when they feel like they're stuck or they feel like things aren't working, they think, oh, well, I just need a new strategy. I just need a new strategy. I just need another checklist. I just need a new way of doing things. Like, how do you know when you need like a new strategy versus when you've actually just hit an identity ceiling and there's just like a pivot that needs to happen, like in your identity and not necessarily in the actions alone, if that makes sense?
Okay. So what I end up seeing, for example, is okay. So picture 4 plus 4, like looking at a math equation, 4 plus 4 equals 8. Okay. A lot of people are looking at their equation and they're looking at it with more energy, more intention, and more quote unquote like strategy. And they want their end goal to change from an 8 to like a 20. But what ends up happening is they're not actually changing the equation. They're still being the same person who is solving that equation. So whether they're adding in a new strategy, a new program, they're adding in a new workout plan, something different that is quote unquote new, but they keep solving the same equation, 4 plus 4 equals 8. then they get a little bit frustrated because like they're like, what the fuck, I'm doing all the right things. I've literally signed up for a program that, you know, guarantees that you're raising your income in business and this and that. And then you're looking at the formula, the sum, and you're like, why is it that I always hit 8? Or maybe one day you hit 9. What I see is, again, is like people are not changing their formula. And formula is, for example, they're doing new actions with the same identity who is moving safe. Versus if you want an entirely different sum, you want reality to completely shift, you have to change the formula, which is we got to change the identity. We also have to add in some bolder actions that your old self would look at these actions as like, are you crazy? Like, who do you think you are for thinking you can do that? The minute you start hearing that fear is when you're starting to separate from your old self, from the old formula. Because if you're not hearing the fear, you're already playing in close proximity to your old self. You're playing in the same neighborhood. But when you start to stretch further and further and further, that you're changing your equation to a completely different equation that ends up giving you like, you know, like 10 plus 10 equals 20, complete different sum. Your old self, like that fear that comes up, is literally evidence that you're stretching. It is evidence that you are about to make your old identity irrelevant. And that's why she's loud, because you're not taking one better step. You're not changing the equation from 4 plus 4 equals 8 to 4 plus 5. It's slightly better. You get slightly better results. You know, things are progressing. But when you're just like quote unquote doing slightly better or good enough and the fear is not super loud, it's because your old self, she's taking one step forward with you over and over and over again. And so that's why it feels safer. You're still doing different things, but the results, reality is not changing that big, because if the fear is not extremely loud, it's because your old self is also in close proximity. You're playing in the same neighborhood as her. So that's why you're always going to get maybe better results, but it's not going to be the type of results that your next level self holds, that your next main character identity holds, who is playing like 5 to 10 times bigger. Because the types of moves that she normalizes, your old self would say, you're completely crazy for doing that. Or like, who do you think you are? AKA the imposter syndrome's coming in hot. That is because you're stretching to 5 steps ahead instead of 1 foot ahead. And now your old self, she's trying to preserve herself. Self-preservation is coming in hot because the separation's starting to happen. But most people, they have so many amazing intentions. They are doing progress, but they stay stuck in this in-between space where they're entertaining both their next level identity and their old self. They're giving both identities a say, both identities an opinion. It's conditional. And then they're wondering why their results are not fully solidifying. And this has happened even with a client that I worked with, where she was showing up. I've worked with this woman like for almost 3 years now, and have witnessed her like create so many changes, like manifested the dream relationship. She's also manifested multi-million-dollar business, like moving across the province. Like, she's fucking kicking ass. But one conversation that had come up at some point too was, she was like, what the heck, my leadership, my courage, my confidence is peak mode around this person, this environment. But every time these specific people or family members come in the mix, it's almost like I shrink. I go back to old self, and it annoys me. It frustrates me because I know it's not my highest standards, and I know it's not what I want. And so this is a classic example. We've done so much work around this to nip that in the ass, but like, this is what I call like, you're conditionally entertaining both. You're showing up as this main character energy that can hold more in these parts of life, but then in these other parts, you're conditionally showing up as your old self, because that's what it brings up. That's what it triggers in you. So that's when people end up being stuck in this liminal space, this in between space of slightly better or slightly more progress, instead of like this holy shit, my reality is completely mirroring my potential, like life has changed insanely, is that they're entertaining both. They're stuck in this liminal space and they're taking slightly better actions, slightly better steps, and instead of like, let's take 5 steps ahead, 10 steps ahead, so I can be moving with my next level identity, instead of like letting my old self just catch up to my pace with 1 step forward. So
I love that. So it's almost like fear is a good thing in certain situations, obviously.
100%.
Like when you're doing things out of your comfort zone, fear is a good thing because that means that you're getting away from that old identity. Because obviously, if you're not afraid, then it's something that your body, your brain, your soul, not your soul necessarily, but your body and your brain are used to. And so it's like, well, there's no fear there. But when you start to get out of your
No.
comfort zone,
Yeah.
that's when the fear starts to come in, but that's not always bad. That's not the thing that's saying, it's not, that is your brain saying, like when you're having fear, that's your brain saying, alert, alert, something's wrong. But there's nothing actually wrong. And I think that's where we need to start getting in this place of like, there's like training our brain. We're like, no, thank you for letting me know. Thank you for being there and trying to protect me. But there's actually nothing wrong. I'm just stepping into my boss bitch next level identity. And we're good. We're good here. But thank
Exactly.
you for keeping me, like for warning me. And something, maybe it's because I'm a math nerd, pharmacist nerd coming up here. But when I'm thinking, like when you were talking, I was like, okay, when you're talking about the equation part, I'm like, it's almost like the identity piece is the multiplier. Like when you're at your old identity, it's like ×1, right? It's always going to be like the same thing. But then when you start to upgrade to your next level identity, you're like multiplying it ×2, ×3, ×4, the same actions, but you're doing it in this whole new energy, this whole new identity, this whole new persona, like your own personal reality, right? Like I was listening to a podcast where they're like, your personality is like your personal reality. And so when you decide to upgrade your identity, you are stepping into this different personal reality. And so you can be taking the same actions or relatively the same actions, but you're multiplying it, which makes it more powerful, but also makes it more scary because you are kind of like stepping out of your comfort zone a little bit. So it's like that. If we're going by the formula thing, it's almost like the identity is like the multiplier of all of it.
Yeah. That's a great way to look at it.
Love,
100%.
love that. So, kind of wrapping it up, there's so many questions, you guys, that I wanted to ask her, but I want to make sure I'm respectful of our time, so we may have to do a part 2 eventually one day. But the woman, if there's like a woman listening right now that feels like she's standing at like the edge of this like next version of herself, but she's terrified to cross that threshold, right? What would you say to her directly? Like, what would be like, they kind of understand, like, oh, I'm at this identity ceiling. Like, what would you say to her? Where should she start? Like, what would be that next step for her?
So I would straight up grab your sweet face and say, my love, you are literally on the verge of creating so much change. Like, this is the decision point that gets to create an entirely different reality, an entirely different baseline for you. And everything that you're feeling within is because it's available, but on the other side of this decision, on the other side of this fear. And so I would ask the woman who is listening to simply have a peek at what would your next level self normalize as your next move? Like, what would be the obvious next move that your next level self would normalize, but that your old self would be like, you're crazy. Is it even going to work out? Like, are you even going to be able to hold that? Like, where the old self is going hard into self-preservation. And I would invite you to take the leap with not the next best action, but your next level self's next obvious action, which is always 5 to 10 times bigger. And trust me, everything that is on the other side of that fear and on the other side of this decision, it is available. But if you allow yourself to go in unconditionally, not conditionally entertaining the old self, but moving forward and holding the vision before reality starts to validate you, that you literally have to keep holding the vision, even though all of the circumstances, all of the odds seem against you, holding the line on the other side is what is going to make you catapult and magnetize everything it is that you want. But again, it comes on the other side of that decision and on the other side of who do you need to become to be able to hold that. Who is she? And how would she move? What would she do? So this would be the very, very first step, is simply making the decision to decide that I'm done living life this way. I'm done creating these basic results that I've already outgrown. I'm done, and I'm ready to hike up. I'm ready to climb up. You're ready to activate, to break through, and to build an entirely new baseline higher up and stay there.
Love that. Love that. Is there anything else that you would like to share with the audience? Anything that maybe we missed, or also this is your chance to, like, anything you want to shout out with your podcast, Instagram, anything that you want to do? The floor is now yours, kind of wrapping it all up here.
Thanks, babe. So, first of all, I am so freaking excited because the irreversible identity method has officially launched. We are in pre-sale, and oh man, it is absolutely fire. Like, the women who are entering the space this summer are going to come out of this experience an entirely, like, elevated, expanded version of you. So a little heads up here of who this is for. This program is for ambitious women. The ambitious woman who's like, I am done dropping the ball on my potential. Like, I already know I'm a badass. I already know I'm confident. I already know that I can break through. I can create the milestones, taste the next level success. But it is for the woman who's like, I'm ready to stay there, to make the expansion irreversible. That we're not stretching ourselves, expanding, and then crawling back to old ways. That you are creating the type of expansion that it makes it impossible to go back to old ways. The type of expansion that I like to call out when I first went all in with my business, with coaching. I was like, there is no fucking way I'm ever going back into old ways, into the matrix, into like the old type of jobs that I used to do. I got the taste of how empowering, how good it got to feel to hold that baseline, and made the decision that I'm not ever going back. And so this is the type of energy, the type of results that women are creating in this space, in the irreversible identity method, is creating the type of expansion that you elevate and expand so much into your next level identity that, like, you ain't going back to old ways, my love. You're not going back to an old shell that you've outgrown. And so the irreversible identity method is a 4-week intensive where we are activating identity expansion, and we are crossing the threshold, the point of no return, making the decision that I refuse to go back to old ways, and we start building the irreversible identity, the version of you who doesn't just manifest more and breaks through, but you learn to become the woman who holds that result as her normal. We are not going back. So it's going to be 4 weeks, different every week. There's a live training. You're going to have access to the replay as well. And so it is the program to, again, if you want to crack out of an old mold, you want to activate your next level identity, you can keep coming back to this experience over and over and over again, because we're always growing and evolving and always stretching into that next level identity. So you're not here to be one identity or two. You're here to max out the different identities that you get to be. And inside the irreversible identity method, like, we are moving in the way that you look back at these 4 weeks and you're like, dang, I followed through more in these past 4 weeks than I have in 6 months. That is the energy. And so I'm so excited. So that is the main offer, babe.
Yeah, that sounds so good. So I will put, if you want to send me that, and I will put the link in the show notes. So that way you can take a look at that, see if that is something that you want to join, and go join her. I know that would be so freaking incredible for so many women in my audience. So I will put the link in my show notes. I just love all of this, and I love how much we align, like, with the identity talk, and really, like, staying in this next level identity. Like, you know, you're a boss bitch. Like, if you're listening to this podcast, you already know you're a boss bitch. You already know you have that potential, at least. Yeah. Like, you already know that's where you're being guided to. So now it's just about doing the thing and making it stay, instead of just being like, I'm a boss bitch. It's that time of the month. No, I'm not. I'm a boss bitch. It's something happened. No, I'm not. Like, no, you get to stay there. You get to stay there. And I think that that's going to be so incredible. I'm so excited for you. So I'll put that in the show notes as well. Do you want to shout out your podcast? I know I talked about it earlier, but your podcast and your Instagram handle as well. I'll put those in the show notes too.
Yes. So, my loves, the podcast is called the Sovereign Remembrance Podcast. I got over 134 episodes on there, all manifestations, all of the identity work, personal development. So, it can be found on any podcast platform. And I'm so excited because I'm going to be interviewing Paige right after this. She's going to be coming on my podcast. You are going to want to listen to that. She's going to be bringing so much magic. I'm so freaking excited. So that is where you can find future episodes as well as Paige's episode on mine. And on Instagram and TikTok, my handle is Mikayla.Chisholm. So just my first name, dot my last name. So come hang out, come say hi. Let me know what your takeaways are from this episode. Like, what are you going to do about this? Like, what did it activate within yourself? And just keep us posted. I want to hear from you, my love. And I'm just so excited to see and connect with you.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Perfect. Yes, yes. Thank you. And thank you for coming on and joining me today on the Identity Glow Up podcast. This was so incredible, which I knew it would be. Like I said, I didn't even get to all the questions, which I also knew that was going to happen, but I don't even care. This was so incredible. If you guys love this episode, please make sure, like Mikayla said, you reach out to us, you let us know what you thought, what your biggest takeaways were. Share it to your stories. Like, I'm sure Mikayla would reshare too. Like, we're going to reshare that. We're going to talk to you. We're going to see how you can take that next step and next level into your life. And just, we want to see, like, be able to see you having like a face to like the actual name. That's the one thing about, I love podcasting, but that's the one thing where it's like, I see that there's people watching, but I can't see who it is. Like, I want to connect with all these amazing women. So make sure you share it to your stories, reach out to us. We would love to hear your biggest takeaways. And that's it. Until the next episode. Thank you guys so much for listening. I will talk to you guys next week. Love you. Bye.